Welcome to DJNTV and Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe. Now introducing the one and only Ben Stowe.
Yeah, baby! Yeah. Good evening and welcome to Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe. Ben Stowe is that guy that lives in northern Minnesota and he fights with polar bears every Thursday afternoon.
I think you're confusing northern Minnesota with Antarctica, but
no?
Or is it the Arctic?
The Arctic. Yeah, it's penguins down there. So
there's no polar bears down there?
I don't think so. I think it's just penguins, isn't it? I think polar bears are in the Arctic.
Who eats the penguins then?
Killer whales or something, or bad.
Like polar bears and the killer whales have like some kind of a deal worked out.
Wait a second. Maybe if we watch Madagascar, we can figure this out.
All right.
It's our homework for next week. We're going to watch Madagascar. Thank you guys for being with tonight. I see Howie and we got Sean jumping in and Robin. Thank you for being with. And tonight's show is questions for Ben. And I actually put the topics down into the chat or the description. So you guys can kind of go and take a look at that. And if there's a question that you're looking down and say, "Ooh, I want to learn more about that," you can try to jump ahead into the video and find it, or you can just watch the whole thing. I suggest you watch the whole thing.
Is this one of those shows where you just fire questions at me and I'm kind of like a penguin in a shooting gallery and I just have to keep responding to questions as fast as I can?
Pretty much. I was thinking about that.
I just wanted to know how my night was going to go. So that's all right.
I thought about it because I think there's 10 of them. And it's like, if we don't get through, Brian and Jay are coming up right behind us. So we know there's no, going overtime. We've got to get done in our time.
Oh, I thought you were going to give Brian and Jay the questions. I'm like, well, let them have it.
Oh, geez.
They're smart guys.
They are. But there's a couple of these questions that, these guys would riff on for an hour. One question.
So wait a minute. I didn't know that was an option. All I have to do is...
No, that's not. You see, there's 10 questions.
One question and milk it for an hour and we're good?
There's 10 questions. You get 4 minutes max a question, and that's a long time. In four minutes, you can share so much knowledge. People will be enlightened. People will be smart. People will feel heavenly.
All right. I'm working on my strategy right now.
Yes, get that strategy ready to go. So if you guys have got some questions out there tonight that you would like to have us put into the show, especially if we're dealing with a question and you have kind of a follow-up to that, put that into the chat, and it should all propagate over here to the main computer, whether you're on Facebook or your Facebook page, Facebook group, YouTube channel. Put that in there, and we'll kind of get to those. Robbie Britton's got the first question. Robbie, we're going to jump to
softballs. How about some softballs?
Robbie's question is a sub that you would pair well with the Evolve 50.
EKX 15 SP.
There we go. See how quick this show is going to go?
Hold on. I need to take more time. Just a minute.
No. That was a bonus question, and you did well. 7 seconds. Oh, bring the questions on, people. 7 seconds a question. This is going to be the greatest show ever. There will definitely be ice cream for Ben if he does all of them in 7 seconds.
Oh, all right then. Okay, good. No, I'm sorry. I've got my focus back.
Another important question. We're going to, again, delay our other questions because of important questions. Thank you, Thomas. What does Mrs. Stowe think of the beard?
You know what? So if you didn't watch a couple weeks ago, we did a show and it was gone. I shaved it, and we had our first event back in an arena, but masks were still required. And now is the time of year when it actually gets nice and warm in Minnesota. And so moving gear in an arena in the heat and the humidity with a beard and a mask, and the beard was gone. So yeah, it was gone. And then it turns out I'm still just as lazy as I was during the pandemic. So it's back. But it's probably going to go away again. But Mrs. Stowe told me she didn't like it during the pandemic. But then apparently it grew on her. And after I shaved it, she said, "Oh, I kind of liked it." So I'm like, all right, well, it's coming back. So I don't know. You know what? You're going to see it come and go. It'll be a fun way to kind of sort of, apply some chronology to our shows.
So Kevin, that answers your question about how long he'll keep the beard. It will come and go. We got this. Thank you guys for being with. We got a lot of comments coming in right now.
I'm going camping this weekend. I'm going to this spot that has, by the way, heads up to all my friends and viewers. Here's what I love about this campsite. There's no cell phone service. So you message me this weekend, just don't expect a reply because you're not going to get one. So
And then they'll think you're dead. Ben usually replies. Ben's dead. Look, no reply.
I know exactly. He hasn't replied in the 4-minute window. No, I definitely, after the way this year has started and some of the things we've talked about with logistics and I quite literally got a message from somebody the other day, and the message said, "I hear you're a guy who can perform miracles for people." And I thought, man, that is a tall standard to try to live up to, and that's fine when it's the exception and not the rule. But lately it's been the rule,
Mm-hmm.
It just feels like everything is so much harder than it has to be. And we're trying so hard to keep up with, as people are getting back into the swing of things. And of course there's massive supply chain issues. So yeah, this weekend, the beard will stay. I'm leaving. I'm taking my beard into the woods, and I'll probably come back. So watch next Tuesday to see if I'm here or not.
We've got more questions coming in here from folks.
I was trying to milk that for as long as I could.
I know, but they're just doing well here. So,
all right, let her rip.
Is there any information out there on the rumored larger Evolve speakers?
That's not going to happen. I mean, it might happen. It's not going to happen anytime soon. So it's something we all want to see, but I don't think it'll be in 2021. I think at this point right now, manufacturers, particularly with the semiconductor shortage and the chip factory burning down, I think they're just having a hard enough time delivering what they have. I mean, fortunately, your sponsor and a company we all love, Electro Voice, has pretty good stock and pretty good supply chain, but JBL is out of PRX and SRX until September. QSC is out of basically everything until October. It's nobody's really thinking about new stuff right now,
Yeah, and that's our little PSA for those who usually buy some new gear for the upcoming high school dance season, which I was just having a conversation about somebody with the homecoming dances for us here in Minnesota. They're like, oh, we should be back to normal by then.
Order them now.
Listen
carefully to me. You don't have to put a penny down. You can call us and reserve something with no money down and no obligation. You can cancel the order, but do not wait, because the orders that are coming in July, the stock that's coming in July are filling the orders that's being placed now, and so on and so forth. So just can't stress it enough. Coming up with miracles constantly is exhausting, and I'm trying very hard, and my staff is trying very hard, and we love you so much, and we appreciate you so much for wanting to support us. But help us all out and forecast those purchases out.
More questions. So someone has Kevin's got the G3 mics and is saying that the paddles just aren't in his budget. Is there a step down antenna option that would still give him a decent range, but not obviously the level of the paddles?
Yeah, you can go to a half wave dipole. You're going to get about a 3 dB gain from that, which is substantial. So that's, and it's a lot less than the paddle. It's only $29 for a half wave. So just reach out to me tomorrow, or somebody on our team. We just need to know the frequency you're operating at, because those antennas are tuned to a frequency. So we need to know which band you have within that G3 family, and we can get you some half waves.
Excellent. Next question. How many platinum cables did Ben make in the shop last night?
Oh, like 62 or something. I forget.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was a bunch. I got home about 1 something last night. My wife says it was closer to 2. I'm pretty sure it was around 1, but
we've got a couple more questions here from Ben, and these are fairly important questions. So we're not going to, it's Ben D out there, by the way. Ben, I'm going to ask them in the opposite order, because I think that will be better. Are you a cone or a cup of ice cream man?
Oh, cone. Yeah, waffle cone, if you're asking.
Okay.
Waffle cone, if you're buying.
If you could pick between vanilla or Moose Tracks, which one would it be?
Probably vanilla. I'm not a huge chocolate fan. Weird as that is. I know, believe me, I hear about it all the time from my wife and daughter. What a weirdo I am. But
and that has nothing to do with ice cream. But anyway.
Exactly. It's just one of the microcosms of the,
household.
I'd probably pick over Moose Tracks. I'd probably pick vanilla.
Excellent. Let's get on to our list. Thank you guys for the early questions here. we're gonna go right down
softballs. We got me 10 minutes in.
We got 10 minutes. So we're gonna go down.
A little army out there. I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, thank you guys for being with us. Got some good chat going in. Blasphemy, Thomas. So the first question, Ben, and I kind of paraphrase these from different DJ chat boards so that we could have them kind of in that question idea here. So the person was wanting to have better consistency within one song to the next volume-wise, because some songs, even with the software set to normalize things, sometimes there's one that's louder, sometimes there's noticeably quieter. Is there anything that's beyond the computer, beyond the digital side, that would allow us to have more of a consistent volume from song to song?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the normalization thing, because that would be my first thing I would say. I'd say, well, you should normalize your tracks. And there's a few different ways of doing that. There's peak normalization, and then there's, the perceived loudness normalization. I honestly don't remember what all the different settings are called within the various softwares, Serato, Record Box, that sort of thing. But there are some types that, like I think it's MP3 gain is the name of the software, where it'll go in and rewrite those packets. There's I think it's called Real Gain, where it actually stores that information in the metadata of the MP3 file, so it isn't actually changing your file. It's just kind of giving read-ahead information to the software. But if normalization, which normalization is something you should do anyway. I mean, that's something you should do. But I think what you're talking about is when you say if normalization doesn't do the trick, then what am I hearing? And ironically, it could be compression. And that's become a thing in today's music. They call it the loudness wars, which finally, I think, well, I don't think anybody won. I think everybody lost. But the wars seem to be sort of ebbing. But what this meant was just a continuous compression and a continuous loss of dynamic range, which makes tracks and material sound louder. But at that loss of dynamic range, but if you look at an example I've used several times in presentations, was some of the Michael Jackson stuff from 80s, 90s, and then greatest hits, and you look at the average energy over time of the track, same song, and it's just turning more and more and more into a brick of solid energy, which, by the way, is very hard on your loudspeakers, very hard on your drivers, and I've said before, people think that compression is something that maybe helps prevent driver failure, but in many cases, compression actually causes driver failure. Just those drivers continue to heat up and can't ever get any airspace. So anyway, I would say the track gain, normalization, those are really important things. Replay gain is what I was trying to think of earlier. Sorry. But then just being aware that if you have two versions of a song and one is very heavily compressed, it will still sound louder with another song with less compression, even with the same peaks. So maybe a solution, and this is way out of my wheelhouse. This is a great question for Jay and Brian, because this is way more in their wheelhouse. I did have a very dear friend ask if I would be interested in DJing his daughter's wedding, and I was tremendously honored. I was blown away at the request, but I had to confess I haven't DJed since like 2008. So now, viewers, if you're watching, you're thinking, "Oh, you fraud, you phony." Well, whatever. You can think what you want. I never claimed to still be a DJ. I DJed for 15 years, and I've been touring and doing live sound. I still think I bring something to the table, but if you don't think so, there's the you can just, there's probably something better on YouTube to watch, like cat videos or something. Anyway, point is, I'm not super up on some of these things when it comes down into the the software. So this might be a Brian or a Jay question. But I'm sort of imagining from an artistic standpoint where maybe I would have songs with different levels of compression or different release eras, because it might mix better with something else I'm doing. If you've got a very heavily compressed modern version and you're trying to mix it with something older, it just might sound much louder, So I don't know, maybe an artistic thing where you've got some different versions of tracks in your library that will mix better. Yeah. Anyway, I can immediately think of like 100 people that are better qualified to answer that question.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're trying to figure out, and to explain kind of what the problem that they're perceiving is, and it's probably due to that compression, and a person has to understand or identify the problem before you can find a solution. And
by the way, I just want to say I did really love my 15 years as a DJ, and I've really loved and I really appreciate friends and viewers who have allowed me to stay in the industry sort of vicariously, that even though I'm no longer DJing sets, again, my time now is spent helping DJs, teaching DJs, and then doing live sound. I still very much feel a part of the industry. So thanks for letting me stick around.
Excellent. Let's continue on here.
How many minutes did I milk that one for?
You got to pick up the pace here a little bit there.
So, no.
We got a lot of ground to cover. So we're talking a single driver and a speaker. A single driver can produce all sorts of different frequencies at the seemingly at the same time. And yet like the human voice seems to not have as wide of a range. How can a single driver be able to do that when they're both basically working on the waves, producing audio via wavelengths?
Well, I think the short answer is they can't. They can to a degree, but not well. And I'll sort of explain this in the way that it's very similar. And I was just having this conversation with my friend Mike Caston, who's one of the engineers at Electric Voice, by the way. Sometimes you just want to nerd out about things like the effect of gravity on sound. We spent a day after Thanksgiving discussing that one time, but that's another here nor there. And so Mike Caston, who's a very brilliant engineer and a great guy, we were just talking about this, how predominantly our vocal cords are designed to reproduce things, at the peak of our hearing range, the human voice. They cannot sufficiently produce the amplitude or the wavelength for low frequency. Mm-hmm. There's very much a cutoff at the bottom of our human voice, and that's why high-pass filters are so important on microphones, that sort of thing. And similarly, they don't do it very well to make very high-pitched sounds. The glaring exception, of course, being Mariah Carey, but, she's like a mutant or something. Most of us have a fairly limited range, call it 400 to 4K, right? It's kind of what our vocal cords can reproduce. And that is absolutely a physical limitation, as you described. Well, similarly, loudspeakers have kind of the same thing. And that's why we often see multi-driver systems. You don't see subwoofers or 18-inch drivers producing 10 kilohertz or very, very high frequencies. They're limited to, 100 hertz, 90 hertz, 80 hertz and below or whatever. And similarly there, you've got things like this is a high frequency diaphragm, which is very, very small. You really can't even see it move, but it's producing those very, very high wavelengths, which are very, very short wavelengths because it has very limited amount of movement. So we take and we put these things together. So we've got a subwoofer, we've got, a mid-low, and we've got a high frequency, like, for example, the system that I use, my line array has high frequency drivers. It has a mid-low driver, and then I have subwoofers that go with that. And now I'm able to better reproduce the whole range, from call it 20 to 20 for all intents and purposes.
Sure.
The sort of, it's not the exception to the rule. It kind of makes the rule is if you think about like a single driver boombox and you say, well, it's reproducing all of them. Yeah, but have you listened to it? It's not really, is it? Right? It's very mid-bandy. Mm-hmm. It doesn't get particularly crisp, but it doesn't get particularly deep. It's sort of like our vocal cords. It's kind of mid-bandy, Paging horns are an excellent example of this.
Yeah, that's true.
And then I think the last thing I would just sort of tack into this would be things like in-ear monitors that have multiple drivers. There are some that have, 6, 7 drivers inside these in-ear monitors.
Wow.
So, yeah, the short answer is they don't, basically. The physics are somewhat similar.
Okay. Excellent. Just copying some of the questions down you guys have got. I'm going to save those to the end. Somebody was talking about they wanted to cover their dance floor with black light or UV lighting. What's the best way to do that for the upcoming high school dance season? Probably
with lots of black light. I mean, it's basically you have a couple options here. You can go with very high-powered fixtures, and you can go with lots of fixtures. And the best is to do both, right? One of my all-time favorites is the Adj Uv Cobb Cannon. Now, this is a very messy black light. It has a lot of visible light. A true black light you really don't see. And there's some really awesome black lights like the Roscoe Moreau Cube, which have dichroic filters in the front to filter out visible light, and thus it's a great theatrical black light. But they're very, very expensive, and so and they're worth it, by the way. But most DJs, they don't really care. They just want a ton of black light out there, and that's where something very inexpensive like the UV Cobb Cannon becomes a great choice. It's got this chip on board inside that's just hammering away with output, and you get a few of those, and you've got a ton of light going out there, you know. And by the way, I actually think we have some B stock units at a crazy good price right now, but that's how.
So you mentioned a filter on the Roscoe ones. Can a person put a filter on the Cobbs?
Absolutely can. Yeah, you could get a dichroic filter to filter out the visible wavelengths and just leave the remaining invisible wavelengths. And again, application thinking like a theater where you don't want to see a big wash of purple light.
Yeah,
there you just want to see something fluoresce in the light.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you're looking for the effect of the black light, not just a ton of light out on the, you know, and that's obviously where Roscoe's strength is the theater industry, you know.
Mm-hmm. Good to know. Excellent. The next one. The person was saying they wanted to do introductions at a wedding party.
Time out. I got to take a drink here. We're cooking along.
You just listen. I got to go set the question. They're talking and they want to do an introduction and they want to have it where they can just like immediately go from a room that is not having haze in it to a haze or fog room where when they introduce and they've got the beams going across the room, now the lights become a 3D light show. What's the quickest way to be able to fill a space with fog or haze like that?
Well, here again, another shout out to a friend of mine. I was talking to Kevin at Ultratech, and Ultratech, I think their slogan is like the masters of fire and fog or something, but they are. They make touring grade products. They make excellent stuff, you know, both in terms of fog, haze, pyro, that sort of thing. And Kevin and I were just talking about this similarly. You know, first thing I think we have to do is make a distinguishment here between fog and haze. You know, fog is something that has a very big particle, doesn't tend to hang around all that long, but it's good for like obscuring things. This doesn't sound like the scenario you're talking about.
I wouldn't think so either. Yeah.
Had the bride and groom running through a wall of fog, that would be a fog machine. But in this case, it sounds like you want something for the beams of light, and that would be haze. And I guess the answer I would give would be two different ones. Nothing's going to happen instantaneously, but we could create the illusion of it. But we could do kind of both in a little bit by taking a very high quality hazer, something that is capable of a lot of output, and hammering that thing hard and fast to get as much haze in the room as quickly as we can. Now, one of the things about haze, it's a smaller particle. It has a tremendous hang time. So it'll be around for a long, long time. Typically what you do is you start the haze way before and you let it slowly accumulate. Now, I think that, again, you could do a little bit of both here in the way that depending on how you're lighting the space or lighting the room, if you don't have those lights on, you're not going to see the beams, and the haze might be less noticeable until suddenly you light up all the beams and there they are. That might be one way. Now, it's going to be difficult if you've got, you know, can down lights and things in a venue. People are going to see that there's haze in the air, but they maybe really won't notice it until you, you know, really kick it with your really bright fixtures. Sort of thinking about, like, I'm thinking about like when Copperfield made the Statue of Liberty disappear. You know, it's just about the eye sees light. So if you don't show the light, the eye doesn't see it, kind of thing, and therefore it's not there. You know. In other words, in a slightly darkened room without a lot of lights going on where that haze is, nobody's going to really notice the haze that much. But you could have a very dramatic effect with your lights to come on, you know, in a very aggressive way where suddenly people would go, wow, woo, look at that, you know. But there's no way to instantaneously make it happen, really, you know.
Sure.
Even a very high-powered hazer is going to take a little bit of time. Just to get the particulate in the air and to get it to spread around. Some models have fans external to the hazer itself that will help, but you can also blow it through a fan, things that will sort of chop it up. But the last thing I would say is, of course, we are very much at the mercy of the air handling systems in the building, too.
True. That's another
one of the things that we found with, you know, with COVID and everybody had their air handlers running at 200%. Well, just as we're trying to remove all the, you know, potential for COVID in the air, we're also removing all the haze. So something that Kevin said as we were discussing an effect we were trying to achieve, and I think this is a great way to put a pin in this. You should go in the venue prior and practice. Learn the venue, learn what the air handler is going to do, learn about, placement and settings. It's going to be very difficult to try it once out of, with no prep and get it right.
Yeah, good point. Very good point. Grant, I think that is what Ben was saying, is that David Copperfield didn't make it disappear.
Yeah, he really didn't. He just used lights to blind us while they moved this is not my theory, but the theory on how he did it was they moved the viewing barge so that the viewing angle shifted. So when they dropped the curtain, it was no longer there. But the way they were able to move the barge without people noticing was they basically blinded people by the light. So you couldn't see the Statue of Liberty behind the light. Kind of like when you're driving at night. If a car is coming with headlights, in your face, you really can't see anything else except that car.
Yeah. Ben,
you don't see the deer right behind it.
That's exactly where I was going to go. There's that deer. Okay, excellent. We're making good time now.
Slow down.
A tall DJ that I think they mentioned they were 6.5 foot tall. But anyway, any of us who are over 6 foot, finding a table or a stand that's high enough to put our controller on and have it at a working height is a little tough. What would you recommend for those of us who are taller and are looking for something to get our controller case high enough to comfortably work at?
Well, I'm 6'1", so I'm not super tall, but I'm not short either. And standard countertop height is about 36 inches, I think 36 to 39. And I would think that would put things at a fairly comfortable height. So if we use that as sort of a frame of reference, we actually have a solution in NLFX. Let me pull it up here. Mm-hmm. There is a table made by a company that makes products for DJs. Imagine that. Weird, right?
Convenient.
Okay, here you should be able to see it.
Odyssey.
Yeah, this is a 48-inch version. They also have a 60-inch version. And this goes up to 39 inches. It's adjustable down from 26 to 39. So maybe if you're not a tall DJ, you can go down a little bit.
Sure.
But it has adjustable legs here, and you can raise and lower it.
Oh, yeah. Yep, there we go. It looks like 1 inch increments almost.
Yeah, pretty much. So you can kind of find that spot that, where it's comfortable for you. But I think, you could certainly try that with your countertops at home. Take a tape measure, try them out, see where they're at. That's going to give you a good idea if that height's going to work for you. Mm-hmm. If your counters are at 36 inches and you stand there and you say, yeah, I like that height. Okay, well, then you know that this table will do the job. If, I don't normally storytell. Well, yes, I do. But I try not to name celebrities, but sometimes you have to name a celebrity. So there was a time back when Shaq was working on his, really focusing on his music career, the Shaq Diesel time, that I was talking to Shaq about a CD player. And it was just literally one of those right place, right time moments where I happened to be there. And, it was just kind of the guy. So I'd love to say it was, through some, tremendous connections or something. It wasn't. It was just purely dumb luck. But anyway, so there I am standing there talking to Shaq about a CD player. And as I'm trying to talk to him about the performance features within this DJ style CD player he was looking at, back when we used CD players, that sort of dates the whole conversation, right?
Yeah, for sure.
All I could think about was how huge that guy is. This guy, just, shaking hands with him was like sticking your hand inside a catcher's mitt, So 39 inches might not do it for Shaq, But anyway, I think for the rest of us, we could kind of get a sense of scale. And that actually reminded me, I have a picture I'm going to pull up, totally random. I hope
seriously, if you think this is going to keep me from getting through the rest of these questions, we're going to get through these questions.
No, you got another show, so
Yeah, we'll make this work. Well, I'll pare these down into yes or no questions pretty soon.
Says you, okay. Well, let me see how fast I can find this picture, and I really hope he doesn't mind. Although I'm pretty sure he doesn't watch my show. So, well, now where is it? A kid I know that's he's a man, and definitely a man. You'll see in the picture, but someone I knew as they played college football, who's now playing in the NFL. And it's a picture of the two of us side by side, and it's pretty extraordinary. Well, I'm sorry, viewers. I'm sure this is really anticlimactic, but I am just trying to stall to
Yes.
a lot of these questions. John doesn't pay me by the hour.
We got so many good questions lined up here.
But it's a great. I love the perspective this picture allows, if I can find it, because doggone it, I can't find it. How is that even possible? I know I have it. Let me try one more thing. There it is. That's so weird. I don't know why it wouldn't show up any other way, but all right. I gotta get back to the video screen. Here we go. Wait for it. Wait for it. Again, I'm 6'1", about 190 pounds. Do you see this? Do you see the picture?
Yeah, we saw that. Yep.
Just closed it on you, didn't I? And you can see just how much bigger he is than I am.
Yeah.
That's just crazy.
But you probably had him in, speed and agility. So, there's that.
Well, and by the way, for the sake of reference, I think Shaq is actually bigger than Zach. So who's now playing for the Packers, by the way. So Vikings fans, whatever. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay, let's head to the next question. A lot of microphone receivers have two output on the back, an XLR and a 1/4 inch jack. Which one would be better to use, and kind of give us an idea of what the differences could be between the two besides the physical connection type?
Well, which one to use? I would say it depends.
Made it that far before.
It's a drinking game, in case you didn't know, viewers. If you're new to this, anyway. So somebody in the chat can explain it.
Yeah, somebody will.
I'm sure
Robin's there. Robin will get you guys.
He's on it. Basically, I pretty much always use the XLR output because I'm using XLR mic preamp inputs on my mixing console. But I think what it comes down to is what you've got. If you've got XLR preamps and you can use the XLR out, I think that's the way to go. If you don't, if you only have 1/4 inch line level inputs, well, that's why it's there for you. Many mic systems allow you to adjust that level as well, by the way. So you can adjust what the output is, but certainly the XLR, which should be a balanced mic level output, could also be line level, again, depending on the systems, and you can set it. I don't know why I'm motioning. I actually have a mic receiver next to me. Hang on, let me just grab this. Low production value, ladies and gentlemen. And by the way, you can see this. This is not dust. That's pollen. I had my window open today, and my entire desk is covered in yellow. A good thing I'm no longer allergic, but well, look at that. This one's only got XLR, so never mind. Would have made a bad example, but you can also see by the Ethernet this is more of a pro unit.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I guess it depends. Unbalanced 1/4 inch, be just fine over short distances. Up to 10 feet wouldn't really bother me. But again, if your mixer has a mic preamp, I tend to plug it in there. Not the least of which reasons being that typically those mic inputs are better equipped to handle mic signals. They have things like a high pass filter. They may have more EQ on there. They may even have some basic compression, that sort of thing.
Excellent. Let's continue on here. Next question. Have AA batteries and other batteries like that have come a long way in the rechargeable world where they actually are reliable and they can do the job. 9 volts have always been a weak sister. Are 9-volt rechargeables finally to the point where they're worthy of investing in for our wireless mic systems that use 9-volt batteries?
I don't think that they're weak sister in any sense. I think what we have to do is think about them for what they are. So when we're talking about things like nickel metal or nickel cadmium, that sort of thing, when you talk about a double A, and I thought for sure I'd have one laying around on my desk, but I don't. But I do have a 9-volt. So when we talk about those tend to be or should be 1.5 volt cell. So if you take an alkaline battery, a double A, it's 1.5 volts. Well, we actually shouldn't call that a battery. We should call it a cell. A 9-volt we could call a battery because it's comprised of multiple cells. If we take 6 1.5 volt cells, we now have a 9-volt battery. So where that becomes more of an issue is that NiCad or nickel metal, those are only 1.2 volt. Well, that's maybe not the end of the world in the double A world, right? Instead of 1.5, it's 1.2. But when we are counting on 6 of them, you take 6 of those, you only have 7.2, not 9. So therein lies the issue, particularly when your mic is measuring the voltage to determine how good your battery is. Right off the get-go, it says, yeah, this isn't very good. I think probably the closest equivalent in terms of overall performance would be lithium ion. That if you got a lithium ion battery, you probably have much closer to 9 volts and it will sustain that much longer. They also tend to be a little bit more resistant to things like memories, and they tend not to drop off as fast as like a NiCad or nickel metal. It's pretty much go, quit. They go until they die. Suddenly, which of course would be the downside there, But so no, I don't think the 9-volt in and of itself is the weaker counterpart to a double A, other than the way it's constructed out of a lot of small cells that lead to a deficiency in the overall voltage.
Okay. Excellent. So lasers, years ago, the lasers when they first were coming out were these little tiny, 50 milliwatt or 5 milliwatt or half a milliwatt, whatever they were.
Yeah, less than 5 milliwatt, 50 milliwatts, a lot of power.
Yeah, they were just these little tiny things that we could do. And it seemed like we had 4.9 was what a lot of them were at that time. Now I'm seeing...
that's not an accident. There was a rule about what you could do.
And now there's more companies coming out with higher powered, and I'm not exactly sure, just that they're much higher than what we used to have. Have the rules changed, and are those safe to be using? Well,
those are two distinctly different questions, aren't they?
And yet I'm only counting them as one for our total for tonight. So I'm just going to say that right now.
Okay, viewers, if you think that's not fair, put it in the chat because I think that's not fair. I would say, yes, the rules have changed, and no, they haven't. The rules, like anything written by the federal government, can be murky at times. So I think here's how we're going to address this. Lasers are still dangerous. Lasers are still awesome. We can have both, but we have to use some common sense and some safety. So I think number one, verify that the laser you're buying is approved by the FDA, because believe it or not, Food and Drug Administration is who regulates lasers. But verify that the laser itself is approved by the FDA, and so is the manufacturer. I think those are two very important things. Don't buy, pirate lasers or whatever, because ultimately the person you're probably hurting is you. You're probably exposed to it more than anybody. And if it's, leaking invisible wavelengths that's damaging your eyesight, well, that's, bad. I can't think of any amount of savings that'd be worth going blind over, not to mention, the potential for injuries and lawsuits and that sort of thing. So one, I would make sure that the manufacturer and the laser that you're getting is regulated. Two, I would familiarize myself with the proper operation and the rules. And let's just pull up the FDA's website, and you can see the government has done things to try to appear more friendly and helpful. They're using larger fonts and cleaner interfaces, but it still reads a bit like a phone book when you get into it. But anyway, I think this is the kind of thing, and here they talk about variances, and we talked earlier about, 5 milliwatts, right? That was the thing, also the color of the light, which is measured in nanometers. So the lower that we're getting down into the, ultraviolets and blues, and then, in the middle there we're in the greens and whatever. But I think ask the manufacturer, are you regulated and licensed by the FDA? Are you approved? Is your product approved? And then verify that. I think, I take nobody at face value. I'd probably contact the FDA and ask, hey, is this thing legit? I think they still have a place you can look. Feel free to ask us. We probably don't know off the top of our head, but we'll certainly do the legwork. You can reach out to somebody like Ben Spellman. With a name like Ben, how bad could the guy be? Ben Spellman at X Laser, good resource. They of course have their easy variance kit. But it's just not an easy question to answer, to say this is the answer and that's it and that's all there is to it. There's a lot of moving parts to this one.
Moving parts.
Anybody wants that link to the FDA site, by the way, I can get it. Actually, maybe I can send it to you and you can post it in the.
Sure, I can do that.
Zip it over in the chat. But I think if you just typed in your favorite search engine, FDA entertainment lasers, you'll probably get there as well. Look for something at fda.gov. And anybody else I would be suspect of.
Right.
The only authority is the FDA. That's it.
Because they're the ones that regulate it, obviously. So.
And by the way, they do. That's a thing too. I've had many times where FDA people have requested copies of the appropriate variances and inspection reports and things for lasers at shows. You and I've seen this at trade shows when we were exhibiting and demoing product. The FDA police are going through and, show me your paperwork. This is a thing. It's a real thing, no doubt. I've had it happen at venues in addition to trade shows as well. They're probably not banging on every wedding reception door, but it's nice to know that they are out there trying to at least keep people somewhat safe from high-powered lasers.
Excellent. Next question. Talking about stands for flying trussing or things above one's head. Is there kind of a formula or ratio of how wide a stand or a base needs to be compared to the height of said stand?
No. OSHA has a formula for scaffolds, which is, I believe, 4-to-1 if you have outriggers. So you can go 4 times higher than the width of your base. That should not be applied to anything that we're using because they're completely different. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of factors involved here, more than just the width of the base. Of course, the weight, what the structure is above, is it likely to catch wind? And you'd be surprised how much stuff, how much wind even a truss can catch in the air.
Oh, yeah.
So those are game changers, No, there's no formula that I would give. I'm sure there is a formula you could come up with. Some physicists could say, yeah, here's a way to figure it out. Listen, this is going to be some seriously ridiculous math with so many variables. I would say the formula is always consult your manufacturer. Do not exceed their guidelines. And just use a little common sense, which I wish was common, but, no formula, I'm afraid.
Okay. Next question. How can I get audio to the floor above me if I can't run any wires to that room?
Well, check out the show that John and I did, 6 months ago, a year ago, 10 years ago. I don't know.
We've done a couple of them that have talked about in-ear monitors and different things.
The whole pandemic has time really.
Actually, it was 3 weeks ago, but hey, time.
What's that?
Yeah, it seemed like 10 years ago.
We did a show on remote audio, and we talked about various ways to send audio wirelessly. I think the best way to do this is with a UHF signal. However, here again, it depends because it depends on the floor material. If it's a wooden floor with wooden joists, it doesn't scare me at all. Piece of cake. If it's a metal pan floor with concrete poured in it with rebar, that might be tough. Not saying it won't happen, but metal blocks radio waves fairly effectively. Mm-hmm. In fact, no, I just won't get into the physics. I can start talking about eddy currents and things. So, point being, I think I would go with a UHF based system. The lower the frequency, probably the better, and I would test it.
Back to getting there and testing it out ahead of time.
I'd go watch the video John and I did whenever it was.
Yeah, if you go search in the Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe area, you will find it. I
think if you search Ben Stowe wireless speakers, it'll probably pop up.
Let's see. Now we're getting into some questions that you guys had in the chat room. I was just keeping them to the side, so we made it through our 10, Ben. Somebody's going to be doing an outdoor New Year's Eve gig, and last year it was really cold. It got down to about 20 degrees, and they want to use
That's not really cold.
I know we can go and talk about the 30 below and yada yada yada. You know,
we also have a show on cold weather for your gear.
We do have that, but they're wondering, will the ETX 35P, will that be able to function at a 20 degree or that type of temperature?
Yeah, definitely. I would recommend not taking it right out of the cold and hitting it as hard as you can right off the get-go. You know, I would say give it some movement. You know, play it at lower levels just to get things moving and slightly warmed up a little bit. But 20 is not that scary to me. When we get into, you know, much colder temperatures, then we have to worry about, you know, moving parts that don't want to move anymore, breaking, you know, things becoming brittle. But I think if you're at 20 and you are sort of easing into it a little bit, I think you'll be just fine.
Excellent.
Now, mind you, of course, that, you know, if you're not, don't tell me I need to replace your speakers. So I have used speakers in much colder than that.
Yeah, and we did a show on that with the frozen floor that was melting.
Yes. I've used speakers in minus 30, so minus 36 actually.
And that was last June. It was crazy.
Yeah, that's Minnesota in June.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Well, it's actually really nice here in June. It's been actually in the 80s here now, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's been actually.
It's now the season we call pollen, as we discussed.
And we saw that going. Next one, Nick has a battery-powered speaker, and we were using it, I believe, at a ceremony, and had a microphone hooked up to it, and had the mic gain all the way up, and had the volume all the way up, and just was not getting enough volume out of the microphone in relation to the volume they were getting with the music. Any idea of how a person can get more microphone volume and using a battery-powered speaker like that?
You know, I feel like we did a show on that one too. Why is my mic so quiet? Really hard to tell, Nick, without seeing stuff. You know, there's different stages of gain. Typically, there's 2 or 3 stages of gain within a microphone system. You know, we have all sorts of things to think about. We have inverse square law. When I move a microphone away from the source, I'm going to start losing decibels, 6 decibels every time I double the distance, which requires 4 times the power to compensate. Then maybe a sensitivity setting in here, and then an AF output setting or an audio output setting on the receiver. And then, of course, I have the preamp setting or the you know, input level setting on the speaker itself. I would say that this is probably a product of gain structure. If the music itself can get loud enough, the mic probably can too. But it's really hard to tell, you know, without having all the information. It's just really hard to say what the magic button to push is, because it's probably a process.
Mm-hmm. And kind of speaking along the lines, that leads into the next one. Somebody was asking about the audio symposium. Is there going to be an audio symposium coming up?
Well, we certainly think so. We're absolutely planning on it. And by we, I mean myself, Mike Fernino, Mike Dussault, Dave Notch, and the folks at Electro Voice. Everybody's absolutely planning on it. And right now, you know, daily average new cases in the U.S. somewhere around 19,000. We're very, very close to winning this thing. I said this analogy a few months ago. I feel like we're, you know, in the final minutes of a game, and we just need to not play prevent defense. We need to keep playing what has worked. So, you know, keep being smart about how we approach this pandemic. You know, and I'm not, to me, like I said, not at all political, not a bit, you know, purely scientific. It seems like the masks are working. It seems like the vaccines are working. Great. Let's keep doing that so we can just put this thing to bed once and for all. That being the case, if we don't have a fall surge and we don't go backwards on things, we are really, really hoping that our guests at Electro Voice, which is owned by Bosch, will allow us to have it back in the building this fall. And we've looked at some dates, September, October, and as soon, and we know this is coming up, we'd love to give you dates and tell you, but we don't make the rules, the virus does. So as soon as we're allowed to pick dates and to set them, yeah, we're very excited about it. And in fact, some things have changed for all of us, right? So this has been a good thing. I think we've reevaluated and retooled our content. You know, we've looked at a lot of things like live stream audio, where suddenly everybody had to go live stream. How can we make live stream audio great? And that would have not have been a topic before, but it's a big time topic now.
That's for sure. Yes.
You know, we're winning gigs. I won a live sound job close to 1,000 miles away from me here purely because I could make the live stream sound good. A million guys could have done the front of house job, but they're like, oh, he can do the live stream. You bet.
Yeah. And that's an important thing now. We've got 2 more questions here. Thomas, we do have your question. Yours is actually the last one. But before that, Corey asked about cleaning hazers. That foggers, there's been, you can do there's cleaning solutions for foggers. Is there something to clean a hazer?
Boy, I got another picture. This one's just from Friday, in fact. Hopefully it's synced over to my computer so I can show you. Yes, it did. This was one of my guys was backstage at a casino, and you could see the beautiful backstage tables and things in the background. And they are using some of the spare time we had to tear down and clean this phaser. So, and I happened to get a picture of it. That was pretty cool. As they say, schedule time for maintenance or your gear will schedule it for you. Now, luckily, our guys knew we were going to have some time, between setup and sound check and whatever. They said, hey, let's bring some extra gear and work on it while we're there. Great. Let's do it.
For sure.
Let's not wait till the gear makes us work on it, right? Couple things, basically. Here again, 1, follow manufacturer's recommended guidelines. And it does depend on the type of hazer that you have, or phaser or fogger. That is a phaser, which is a combination fogger hazer. I mentioned my friends at Ultratech earlier. Their hazers are pro touring hazers, and they are built so easy to clean. It's just amazing how you can just field strip these things. They're built to be maintained, right? Whereas some of your cheaper ones are basically built to be thrown away.
Right, yeah.
You don't clean it, you throw it in the garbage can. So it depends on what you have, first and foremost. We typically will use like a 1 to 4 distilled water to white vinegar mix. It helps dissolve some of that gunk and gum, and we'll kind of clean everything up, run that through, get everything nice and cleaned out, and then run fluid back through it to get that, so we don't leave that mix in the line.
Yep. Excellent. And Thomas Heath's question here, he's wondering if CO2 cannons were safe. We were talking lasers, and then that brought up that question.
I think we did a show on cleaning and maintaining gear too, right?
Yeah, we did. Yep. I don't know if we ever talked hazer. I think we did talk foggers in the past.
Well, and here again, consult your manufacturer, consult their guidelines. They should have them because cleaning is a fairly regular thing you should do.
Part of maintenance.
So I'm sorry, I was actually making a note to follow up on something, and you asked the last question.
Thomas Heath was wondering about CO2 cannons, the safety of using, if those are safe to be using.
Are we talking like CO2 cannons, like that are just blasting out CO2?
I would guess so. Yeah, I would think so. That's just the blast of cold air across the room type of thing. Okay,
so not like a confetti cannon that's powered by CO2.
Yeah.
Or something that's, the CO2 is a propellant, but here the CO2 is the actual thing.
The effect, that fog.
Well, I think 3 things that come to my mind. Here again, reputable products from reputable brands, because you are expelling gas that's under very high pressure. And the reason it gets really, really cold is it expands really fast, and that rapid expansion causes it to cool. So I think number 1 is make sure that you're not pointing it at things that could be harmed by the rapid expulsion of the gas itself. 2, things are going to incur a temperature change pretty quick, right? So I'd be mindful of that, obviously, as a thing. And 3, of course, CO2 is a poisonous gas. No big deal when it's in your soda or it's used reasonably, but if you're in a confined space and you uncork a giant tank of CO2, you could do things that are detrimental to yourself. In fact, I noted doing an event in 2019, which was pretty cool, but they had a ton of CO2, and I was walking and just in front of the stage. I'd gone to go check on a subwoofer driver. It was like a 3-week-long event, and I just had to walk down to check on a subwoofer driver. I was getting a weird reading on my supervision software, and I was walking through this field of CO2 for the length of the stage, and I got back, and I'm like, I got a headache, Now, it might have been from being in front of 110 dB of wall of sound, but I think it was the kind of headache you get when you just inhaled a lot of CO2, and your body's like, hey, this is the stuff we're trying to get rid of, by the way. Yeah. Don't breathe that stuff in, moron. So...
John Colley had a suggestion for a T-shirt, a DJNTV T-shirt.
Nice.
That would be, yes, we have a show on that.
I love it.
That was good.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah, that was good. That was a good idea.
By the way, I'm gonna find a video. I remember they had this guy they flew in from, I think it was Europe, but I haven't a clue. Let me see if I can find this picture of this event. There's a video of this guy and his CO2 gun. This wasn't the one that caused the headache, but I actually think I have another picture somewhere of all the giant stacks of CO2 cylinders, because I was right next to him. It was like being in an arsenal. Well, I guess this will have to do. Let's fast forward a little bit and go. So maybe I don't know. I don't know what it was exactly that gave me the headache, but
Yeah, just a little.
that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was neat. You did a nice job. You made the robot look real when you're.
Yeah, well, I wasn't in the robot suit. I
Sure
was
you weren't.
I was filming it, but that trip there was not to check on the sub. I had just been watching this set, and I had been at this thing for like 3 weeks, and I was like, oh, my kids would like this. So
Yeah,
I was gonna
no,
get
it
this
is.
video of this guy in a robot suit and blasting CO2 all around.
Yeah, blasting at people, and then the next day he's got a headache from not. Crazy. Ben, we made it through, and we have we've got 3 minutes for people to run to the restroom and get back in time to go to djntv.com/chill and catch the Jay and Brian Tuesday Night Music Show. So you guys go jump in and do that, and we'll be back again next time. Thanks, Ben, for going through the whole list.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you.
Good night, everybody. Still going.